Hello everyone, Linda Israel here, and I'm going to make a little mixed media card of some kind. And the first thing that I've got is some heavier cardstock. It's hot press watercolor paper. It's smooth on both sides. It's a little bit thicker than cardstock normally is. And I've got some scraps of book pages left over from some projects. So I've got a little glue pot. There's lots of instructions out there where this is glue and water is all it is. And I'm just going to press my paper into this. And then I'm going to glue it down onto my piece of paper here. I've got another piece of watercolor paper that I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add a few things and then I'm going to cut a heart out of it. So I'll kind of do both of these at the same time, just adding some strips of paper here and there, not really worrying about how I'm putting it together, just doing it. Sometimes I just get lost in my own little world. I'm just sitting here playing and adding, and I think I need to stop now. Alright, so I'm going to put away my glue. And the next thing I'm going to do is pull out a little bit of some acrylic paint, and then we'll also do some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. So I just have some cheap craft paint is what I call it. One of them's a metallic, and then the others are just plain paint. So I'm going to go in here and add a little bit of paint, and I'm going to do it in layers. So I'll do a layer and then I'll let it dry, or dry it with my heat tool, and then I'll come back. And because I want these to be a little bit different but at the same time kind of coordinate, I'll do a couple of the same techniques on both pieces of paper. And I'll take my heat tool and I'm going to dry this because I don't want the colors to muddle when I start adding the next layer. Now I've got a little bit of this teal color. Now I've got some pink. I'm going to dry these and then I'll be back. Alright, so this is dried just a little bit, and I have, this is an old one. This is a Tim Holtz stencil, and I thought I would add a little bit of white on here. So I'm going to get out my palette again, and this time I'm going to put some white paint in the palette, and then I'm just going to use a pouncing sponge brush, if you will, and I'm going to kind of pounce where I want some color on here. So I'm just going to pick a couple of spots. So that just adds a little bit of dimension on here. And I think what I want to do, because I want this to be a little bit more muted, is I'm just going to take the brush and kind of smear it over the top, and that'll kind of mute that bright color. So I want them to go together, but I also want the top part to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to dry this with my heat tool. I have a stamp that's a ruler and some Brutus Monroe detail ink. I'm going to stamp on this bigger card a couple of times. Then I have this circle stamp. And then for this, I've got a text stamp. So I'm just going to ink this up and stamp that over the whole thing. So it kind of gives me a whole different look there. I'm going to see how this is going to come out by going ahead and cutting out my heart. So I'm just going to fussy cut this out. Well, this is starting to come together here. I am trying to decide what I want to do next. I want this heart to kind of pop just a little bit more. So I think I'm going to spray this with some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. I have a stencil that I made that's laying on here, and then I've got Curious by Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist. I'm going to spray this over the top. That's going to deepen that blue that's in there. Alright, I'm going to use the best glue ever, and I'm going to glue this down on top, kind of over to one side. And then I have a No-Clog writing cap from Scrap Perfect and some black paint. And what I want to do is basically make a fine writer. So the lid comes right off and this should fit right on. So what you do with these No-Clog writing tips is you make sure that when you put this together that the inner needle is on tight, and then you put the blue cap on top and then put it together. And I'm going to test this out on a piece of scrap paper, so it's going to come out really easily. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around this heart and add some black paint. It would work better if I had a smaller bottle, but I didn't have a small bottle of black, so I'm using a larger bottle. And I think what I want to do now is I'm just going to make some marks on here and kind of define some of these pieces of paper in the background. And then when I'm done with this, I'll take it to the sink and clean it. But if I want to leave it on here, all I've got to do is take the pokey tool and put the lid back on. And this can stay just like this. It won't clog. Alright, so I'm going to let this dry and then I'll be back in just a moment. I want some black around the outside edge, but I don't want to use the fine tip. So what I'm going to do is, even though I haven't cleaned this out yet, I'm just going to squirt out a little bit of this paint onto my palette. And then I've got a foam brush, and I'm going to go right around the edge as if this is a distressing tool. I've got a little stamp that says follow your heart and a scrap of paper here. So what I'm going to do is stamp this on here. And then I'm going to trim it out. And we're going to use this as a little focal on top of the heart. I'm going to use the same black paint around the edge. I'm going to use a little bit of the best glue ever and by Scrap Perfect and put a little bit on the back side of this little saying. So there is another quick card using stamping that could be used in a junk journal. You could use it as a postcard to mail to somebody. I made a little mess on the back, so I would probably either leave it like it is or put another card on the back side of it. But I thought that turned out pretty cute for something really quick to do. If this is something that you like, please let me know below and I'll show you some more stuff like this. Make sure that you like this video if you enjoyed it, shared it with your friends, and of course subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Check the description box to a link to my blog, and let's see, my connectors on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and my Facebook groups as well. Alright everybody, I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial that I'm sharing with you today. Have a fabulous day and thanks so much for watching. Bye.